Imagine walking through a major American city in the mid-1800s and seeing massive stone structures reaching toward the sky, capped with ornate metal spires that glowed without a single wire in sight. We're taught that this was the era of horse-drawn carriages and candlelight, but the physical evidence left behind suggests a reality that is far more shocking. There is a growing realization among independent researchers that our ancestors weren't just surviving in a primitive world, but were actually masters of an atmospheric energy grid that we are only now beginning to rediscover. If you look closely at old photographs from the late 19th century, you will notice something strange about the architecture of world fairs and municipal buildings. They weren't just built for aesthetics, they functioned as massive antennas, harvesting energy directly from the ionosphere. This wasn't some steampunk fantasy. This was a global high-tech civilization that was systematically dismantled and erased from our history books to make room for the metered energy monopolies we live under today. The story we have been told is that Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla were the pioneers who brought light to a dark world. But when you dig into the archives of the 1800s, you find descriptions of wireless power and self-sustaining lighting systems that predate their inventions by decades. In cities across America and Europe, giant cathedrals and capitol buildings featured massive domes covered in copper and topped with gold-plated rods. Today, we are told these are merely religious symbols or decorative lightning rods, but their internal structure reveals a different purpose altogether. These buildings were massive capacitors. They were designed to pull static electricity from the air and distribute it through the heavy metal frameworks of the city. This explains why so many of these breathtaking structures were mysteriously destroyed in massive fires or demolished shortly after they were built. The people in power realized that if energy was free and pulled from the air, they could never control the population. Think about the great exhibitions like the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. History says it was built in just a couple of years using temporary materials like plaster and wood. But when you look at the high-resolution photos, the scale of the technology is mind-blowing. Thousands of perfectly synchronized electric lights were glowing at a time when most people supposedly didn't even have indoor plumbing. The official narrative claims they used massive steam engines to power the fair, but there is no record of the coal shipments or the massive chimneys required to run a plant of that size. The truth is likely far more provocative. The fair was a demonstration of a pre-existing global power grid. Once the fair ended, instead of preserving these architectural marvels, they were burned to the ground or blown up. This happened over and over in cities like San Francisco, St. Louis, and Buffalo. It was a systematic reset designed to hide the fact that we once had access to unlimited clean energy. The transition from this atmospheric power to the wired world we know today was not a technological advancement, it was a hostile takeover. Investors like J.P. Morgan realized that you cannot put a meter on the air. If everyone could stick a copper rod in their backyard and power their home for free, the entire global economic structure would collapse. So they funded the destruction of the old world. They replaced the elegant wireless spires with ugly wooden poles and tangled wires. They rewritten the textbooks to make us believe that before 1880, the world was a dark and backwards place. They turned our ancient power plants into museums or government offices and told us the metal antennas on top were just for show. But the resonance of these buildings still exists. If you go into an old cathedral today, you can feel a specific vibration, a frequency that was originally tuned to interact with the human biofield and the Earth's energy. We also have to look at the mysterious anti-tech found on the streets of old New York and Philadelphia, massive cast-iron lampposts that had no gas lines and no wires, yet they emitted a brilliant white light. Many of these were stripped of their components and converted to the modern, inefficient bulbs we use today. Why would a society supposedly struggling with basic survival invest so much energy into building complex, heavy iron infrastructure for something as simple as a lamp? The answer is simple. The infrastructure was already there. It was left over from a previous era of high technology that suffered a cataclysmic event. The people of the 1800s weren't building these systems from scratch. They were inheriting them and trying to figure out how to turn them back on. This is why the architecture of that time looks so similar across the entire world, from Russia to America to Australia. It was a unified global grid. As we move further into the 21st century, the cracks in the official story are becoming impossible to ignore. We're seeing a resurgence in the study of etheric energy and scalar waves, the very things Nikola Tesla tried to warn us about before his lab was burned and his patents were seized. We're beginning to understand that the 1800s weren't the beginning of our technological journey, but the end of a much greater one. The reason this information is so suppressed is because it changes everything about how we view our place in the world. If we admit that a power system existed 200 years ago that defies everything we know today, we have to admit that we have been lied to about our history, our potential, and our freedom. We're living in the ruins of a high-tech civilization, and the evidence is hiding in plain sight on every street corner of our oldest cities. The next time you walk past an old stone building with massive columns and a copper dome, don't just look at it as a relic of the past, look at it as a piece of machinery. Look at the patterns in the stonework and the placement of the metal finials. We are being called to look past the lies of the Industrial Revolution and reclaim the knowledge that was stolen from us. The grid is still there, waiting to be reactivated. The question is, are we ready to face the truth about where we came from and what we are truly capable of? History is not a straight line of progress. It is a series of cycles, and we are currently waking up at the end of a long dark age. The light of the 1800s never truly went out. It was just hidden behind a curtain of greed and deception. It is time to pull that curtain back and see the world for what it really is. If you found this exploration of our hidden past intriguing, make sure to look at your own local history with fresh eyes. Search for old photos of your city before 1900 and look for the spires, look for the empty streets, and look for the technology that shouldn't exist. The more people who start asking these questions, the harder it becomes for the truth to stay buried. We are the generation that will finally bridge the gap between our forgotten history and our future. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we're just scratching the surface of the mysteries hidden within our timeline. There is so much more to uncover about the world that was and the world that could be again. Stay curious and keep searching for the truth.